Hi and welcome to another episode of Delaware County Political News, Meet the Candidate. Today we are here with Laura Wentz, candidate for Upper Darby Township Council at Large. Laura is the lighting designer, Theatrical, Electrician, and technical director of Kappa High School. She was a resident lighting director from 2002 to 2006, head electrician from 2002 to 2008, and adjunct professor for theater electrics for Arcadia University. She was also a theater coach for lighting and sound from 1996 to 2007 for Lower Merion High School players. Laura has been a member of the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, Local No. 8, since 2002. She is currently a delegate for her local to the Philadelphia AFL-CIO. Laura joined the CLUW in 2009 and became a member of the executive board for the Philly chapter in that same year. Then in 2012, she became the executive vice president of the chapter, and in 2014, the president. The CLUW is made up of volunteer women and men throughout the country who fight for women's rights, unions' rights, all workers' rights and human rights in the United States and throughout the world. Laura, thank you for being a guest on Delaware County Political News.
Thank you for having me. It's fabulous to be here.
Laura, you are president of the Philadelphia Coalition of Labor Union Women. What is it and what do you do?
So it's a collection of women and men who are working together, fighting for women's, as you said, women's rights, worker rights, human rights, union rights, Mother Earth's rights throughout the country and the world. And we do a variety of things. We are activists on and advocates on issues, on legislation that promote women's rights and workers' rights, like raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour at least, right? Fighting for paid sick leave, fighting for women's reproductive rights, for union rights, the rights to organize, the rights to have collective bargaining, and all those legislation that's out there that is working against workers' rights and want to take away those rights from workers, and whether they're union or non-union. They want to take away collective bargaining. There's so many bills in Harrisburg or Congress to do just that. When they talk about the term right to work, it's right to work for less. It's a right to get rid of collective bargaining. It's a way to help corporations to basically take over the realm and not take care of the workers. The trickle-down effect doesn't work.
And even this right to work expression, that was a term that was created by employers to really trick the public.
Yes.
Because it's actually unions who want to give their employees right to organize. So it was a way of fooling people to think that they are for employees' right to work for more. Right,
and it's really the right to work for less. They want to be able to take away an standard 8-hour workday that unions have provided for the workers throughout the country, around the world. The weekend was created by unions. Overtime was created by unions. Workers' compensation when injured on the job. If you work for McDonald's and and workers get burned there, they're told to put mustard on it. And when they say, no, I need to go to the hospital, they say, well, you're going to lose your job. Because there is no union representation, because they do not have the protections that unions have through the collective bargaining process to make sure that the workers are protected from injuries on the job and workers' compensation.
Your work as president with the Philadelphia Coalition of Labor Union Women, this really ties into your passion through everything that you do politically, doesn't it, Laura?
Yes. Well, one of the key things that we do is we empower women to run for office. We empower women to run for office, whether it's in their unions, in their local communities, and groups that they're a part of, as well as political office. And that is essential. I mean, the reality is, if our voice, if our voice is not at the table, then we have, you know, the vision is limited. Women have a very different perspective than men. Women of color have different perspective from one another. We see things in a different way. We are more likely to be more inclusive and more, how does it affect the big picture and everyone in it, right? And that's one of the things that is difficult for women, because they don't think they're qualified to run for office. Women need to be asked 7 times before they even consider to run for office, because they're worrying about everyone around them versus, and whether or not they're qualified, or do they have the skills, do they have the knowledge. And so one of the key things we do is we empower them to run for office. The one snag is that CLU does not endorse candidates, so we focus on the issues. And so myself, I decided to run for Upper Darby Township Council at large because I was tired of being on the outside looking in. You know, I as a union activist, I decided that it's time to get on the inside of local government, shake things up up a bit, and improve quality of life for everyone versus select few.
And Laura, you are also a founding member of Delco NOW. What is that, and what do you do there?
So NOW is National Organization for Women. CLU and NOW have always run hand in hand. It's the non-union sector predominantly of the women's activist organizations. They fight for the same things CLU fights for. One of the things they have is the ability to, they have PACs as part of their, as a separate division within NOW, so they're also able to endorse candidates. And so my role in Delco NOW is event organizer, which I've been slacking a little because I'm running for office. But luckily my sisters have helped out. Janice, who's our fundraising coordinator, has helped to, between the two of us, we've been able to put together some events. So we did an event on Medicare 101, Social Security for tip wage workers. A lot of people don't realize that if you're a tip wage worker, your checks are $0. When you get a check, it's zero because you get paid $2 and maybe 25 cents an hour. So by the time taxes are taken out, there's nothing left, and there's barely anything that goes to Social Security unless they're paying in at the end of the year as an independent contractor. That means that when they go to retire, there are no funds for them for Social Security. So we put on workshops and trainings like that as well.
Just so we understand these acronyms, when you say CLU, you're talking about Coalition of Labor Union, CLU, Philly CLU. And when you say NOW, you're saying Delco NOW. So, right, but there's also Philadelphia chapter of NOW, Bucks County has a chapter of NOW, Chester County, Montgomery County, and it's a statewide, it's a national organization. So there's statewide, just like for Philly, for CLU itself, there's a national-wide organization plus local chapters in the surrounding counties. And actually for Philly CLU, I've been working with the surrounding counties on forming chapters in the surrounding counties. So we have the Neshaminy Bucks CLU and the Delaware Chester Counties CLU chapter. So that for members of the Philly CLU chapter that live or work in those counties could then attend their own CLU chapter meetings more locally so that they would be more involved. And we've been able to form those chapters. And you said you've been putting more time into the campaign, so you've had less time to put into Delco NOW, but your sisters have been picking up the slack. When you say sisters, do you mean sisters of Delco NOW? Do you mean blood sisters? Do you mean sisters in task to fight the cause? Well, I mean activist sisters. I mean members of Delco NOW, sisters that have stepped up and helped to fill in the gap for those of us that are running for office. Heather Boyd is the president of Delco NOW. She's now the Upper Darby Democratic chair. So she's a little distracted with other things that are going on. So other members of the Delco NOW have stepped up to fill in the void for those of us that are really busy on the political side right now. Same thing for CLU.
Philly Clue, other sisters have stepped up to help make things happen. We're having a fundraiser for Women Against Abuse on October 11th. Women Against Abuse is the only union shelter in Philadelphia, and they only accept women, children of domestic violence. So we've made sure to have a fundraiser for them every year. And this year we're having 2 speakers, one from Power and one from Juntos, to talk about racism, hate, bigotry that women of color encounter every day. One of the things within our board member discussions, we discovered that a member of our board who's of dark skin, she got on an elevator and discovered the white women in the elevator picked up their purse and held it tight to her chest just because she got on the elevator. And we don't know that type of discrimination and bias happens unless our sisters of color tell us, so that we can make sure it doesn't happen.
Now that's an education issue there, isn't it?
Yes. Yes, and one of the things that I went to a training that talked about beyond bias, that we're trained by society to see, if we see a picture of a man of dark skin, to be afraid of him, versus a man of lighter skin to not be afraid of him. And that's something that's part of bias that society has trained us to have a reaction one way or the other, and we need to make sure we don't have a reaction. We need to step beyond that and make the change now.
Laura, what do you do for a living?
So, as you said, I'm a theatrical lighting designer and stagehand. So I could be designing lights at Kappa High School, Creative and Performing Arts School of Philadelphia. I design lights for their musicals. Or working as a stagehand in any of the union theaters in Philadelphia. So last week I was at the Academy of Music for helping to hang lights for a wedding that was actually going to take place this past weekend. Before that, at the Academy of Music, I worked on Wicked. There was a proscenium arch piece with a big dragon in it. I helped to put the dragon assemble the dragon, and then the next day I was on Electrics, and then I climbed the dragon and focus lights within the dragon. So that's kind of what we do. We take theatrical productions and we unload them from their trucks, put them all together, and make magic for people who come to see them. Or at Wells Fargo Center, since it's Wells Fargo, you have ice hockey, and one day you have ice hockey, and the next day you have a concert. We're the ones who, take the equipment from the loading dock.
Tell us how you serve your community.
So, as part of being a stagehand and lighting designer, I've also done a lot of teaching of technical theater to high school and college scenarios. So one of them was Lower Merion High School. I was the lighting and sound coach for 11 years. I have worked with many students that I got really close with. They're great kids that have turned into fabulous adults. And at Lower Merion, we did have an 18-month period where students either passed away due to natural causes or by drunk driving accidents. And it was a very difficult time. 2 of them died within 2 weeks of each other during the summertime, Anya and Dina, and then that was June, July, and then by Labor Day of that year, Matt Ehrman passed away. He had been a student on my crew. He was awesome. He was one of those kids that he was a little clumsy sometimes, and he would start to trip, but instead of actually falling, he would turn into some gymnastic move, whether it was dive roll or somersault or whatever, flip of some kind, and he never really actually fell, which was always interesting. So at Players, that summer, that day after Labor Day is when I found out that Matt had passed away. He was about to start his senior year or his freshman year of college, and it was really difficult because 2 others had already died. We were having a meeting of players to help the students deal with the loss of their friends. Dina and Anya, or Ani and Dina, and then I just found out that Matt had died. And I went with the counselors and the coaches got together. We're gonna go and talk to the students. Now I'm crying, I'm really upset. You know, they're amazing students, and to have lost them was horrendous. And the counselors were like, oh, are you gonna be okay? I'm like, yeah, I'll be fine. It's all good, right? So we go to talk to the kids. And the counselors, you know, they were very stiff and rigid and so forth, and they talk to the kids, not with the kids. And when they were done their spiel, I kind of did a clarification. You guys are done. They're like, yes. I was like, okay, great. All right, let's all sit on the floor, because that's what we did at Players. We sat on the floor. We sat in a circle, and we went around and we talked about our stories. It's kind of like the Shiva part of, for those who are Jewish who sit Shiva, they tell stories about the loved ones that they have lost, and we incorporated that in. And we each told stories about Ani, Dina, and Matt, and we all got a chance to learn from each other different stories that they had, that everyone had experienced. And it was really powerful, and some of the counselors sat down and joined in with us, and there were things that they had never known about the individuals and Matt and stuff, and they always thought he was quiet, when for us he was always loud, and it was a very powerful moment. And I mean, I was just crying with my students, because that's, you know, that's what you do when you work with kids day in and day out. If you don't feel emotional connections to them, then what is the point? You know, why are you involved? I mean, I trained my students so that they could go and work professionally in any theater that they walked into, and many of them have. And it's awesome. And that's kind of what I do. I like sharing knowledge.
And you've been teaching for after school at Lower Merion
I was there from '96 to 2007.
11 years.
Yeah, I was there for 11 years. And
any plans on going back?
No.
Why do you want to run for office?
I want to run for office because with all the advocacy work that I've been doing through CLUE, through my union organizing, I realized that none of it really matters if what I'm running into in my day-to-day community, if those in my community don't have those rights that I'm fighting for nationwide, then what is the point, right? So I figured I need to start where I live. I need to focus in on making sure there isn't discrimination where I live, to make sure that everyone's treated fairly, that there is not racial or sexual discrimination where I live. So I realized that I needed to stop looking so much nationwide and start looking where I live.
Laura, this is an extension of your national politics?
Yes.
Which you're doing now?
Yes.
Laura, a big premise of my entire show is that there is a deep interconnection between national and local politics. Share with our viewers the connection that you notice between national and federal politics and the local, state, and Upper Darby politics.
The connection falls under rights, people's rights to live without discrimination. That's an undercurrent. That's always there. I think one of the, and so in parts of Upper Darby is kind of divided in two main parts: the city of Upper Darby, which is where I live, in the township of Upper Darby, and then there's areas like Drexel Hill, which have more money. The people who live there have a lot more money than the city part of Upper Darby. And the current government officials have spent a lot of funds on improving quality of life for those who live in Drexel Hill and the other parts of Upper Darby than those who live in the heart of the city of Upper Darby, where people who who live there. They live in apartments, they live in twins, they live in row homes, and there's more diversity in this section. There's diversity all throughout the township, but there's more diversity and more people are condensed over in this one area. And they haven't put much money into revitalizing the community. So there's a lot of talk about, we're going to do all these things for you, but you've been in power for 40 years and you've allowed the buildings to become empty, or there are less businesses, or they're crumbling, or the infrastructure's just not necessarily fully there, and people aren't, there's a lot of homeless. There's a whole lot of homeless in Upper Darby, but there's not a 24-hour shelter in the heart of Upper Darby to take in all these homeless. There's a daytime one, but once it closes at night, then they're out on the streets of Upper Darby. And then they're going to the 69th Street terminal. And then 69th Street train station, transportation center is kicking them out at a certain time because there isn't a place for them. And we need to make sure there's a place for our homeless. We have to make sure that there's a path for them to no longer be homeless and have a path back to owning their own home, or having an apartment, or having a job, so that they aren't homeless anymore. There's so many things happening in the city of Upper Darby of where if we reevaluate the direction of funds to improve quality of life for everyone versus a select few, which is kind of what we've had, then we can make things better for everyone.
Specifically, what issues are involved in the 2017 election?
Revitalizing as I said, our streets, our small businesses. We have so many amazing, unique, different small businesses here in Upper Darby, from all the different, just from being a refugee hub of all these different people coming in from all over the world. They come to and they live in Upper Darby, they start new businesses, and they have so much to contribute to our communities. But one of the key things that they run into a problem with is many of the people who live in the township don't shop in the township. We need our community to shop in the township so that our businesses can thrive. Well, why don't they stop? Why don't people shop there? Well, from what I hear, it's because there's not enough parking, there's not safe parking, the parking doesn't make sense. Or for myself, when I walk from my house to 69th Street, I walk through trash and cigarette butts and chicken wings, and it's hard for people to walk through sidewalks that look like that and then go into those businesses, right? So we have a lot of revitalizations of the walkways and make sure there's trash cans on every corners and places for cigarette butts, and retrain ourselves to actually throw the trash in the trash can and the cigarette butts in the container, so that people will want to walk into these businesses and utilize their services and put the funds back into the community. Because if our small businesses and our businesses as a whole are doing better, then we don't need to raise taxes, right? And then we can attract other businesses to come to our community, preferably, especially ones that pay a living wage, right? If we can get our businesses to pay the workers at least $15 an hour, then more money is coming into the community. That people have more funds to spend in the community, and we will thrive.
Why should voters vote for you?
I'm a good listener. I share values that are similar to many of the people in my community. I'm open. I am interested in what everyone has to say. I'm interested in what's important to them. And as an elected official, I will continue to be that way. And I will continue to share their voices at the table and make sure we're well represented, that everyone has a voice at the table and not just a select few.
Are you and your fellow Democrats running as a ticket?
Yes, we have a full slate. We have a full at-large slate. We have Scott Alberts, who's running for treasurer, myself and Barbara Ann Keffer, myself, Laura Wentz, and Barbara Ann Keffer running for council at large. Then we have 5 school board candidates. And then we also have Don Fields for the 1st District, Bob Gwynn for the 5th District. We unfortunately do not have anyone for the 3rd District, but beyond that we have a very complete slate, and if we can get everyone to come out and vote straight Democrat, we will win. And we will flip power in school board and council for the first time in many, many, many years. And if we can do that, then we can make sure we can make these changes happen. We would have that control of being able to help make all of these changes. Up to this point in time, for every Democrat that's won and has been elected, they haven't been able to influence, whether it's school board or council, that greatly because they didn't have the majority vote. In this election, we could get the majority vote, and then we can make magic happen.
Laura, that's all we have time for today, but I want to thank you again for being a guest on Delaware County Political News.
Thank you.
We have been here with Laura Wentz, candidate for Upper Darby Township Council at Large, and I am your host, Larry DeMarco. If you like this video, please don't forget to share it with all your friends on your contact list and Facebook friends. And please like, follow, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. We're signing off. Tune in next time. Bye for now.